So here we have Shelob from the new Path to Cirith Ungol. Shelob and Gollum. But this is obviously Shelob. Built her up, based her up. This just sharp sand on the base here in the middle. Yeah, a very nice model to put together. The base was a little bit tricky getting all the legs in the right places because some of her claws, or all of her claws, are all on the rock here, so it's a little bit tricky in that regard. But really nice model to put together. So this is based with Ghoul Grey from Colourforge, and we're going to paint her up as best we can. To start that, we're going to take some Sigvold Burgundy and we're going to do the pinky reddy parts on her face. We're not going to do the ones on the back of her abdomen yet, or the front of her abdomen. Just the ones on her face. So look at the box for this, but it is kind of around here. Once we've done that, we're going to take some Black Legion and we are going to paint over everything else. Leave the rocks and the base for the time being, but all of Shelob herself is going to get this. Use a relatively bigger brush if I can find one. There we go. Doesn't need to be neat. If it goes on the base, it's not a problem. Just have to be careful around the face where we've already painted. And we'll leave that area for the minute, let that dry. So now that your Black Templar has dried, we're going to take some Targor Raid Shade and we're going to go over all the hard areas, I guess. This is going to include the body and the abdomen and the legs, but we're not going to try and avoid the gaps in the legs. We're also going to avoid her, what are they called? Mandibles, but the claws on the mandibles, I suppose, and the bottom segment of our foot here, so you can see where it separates. We're going to avoid that bit. Now that that wash has dried, we're going to take some Eshin Grey and we're going to dry brush all them areas. It doesn't matter too much if we get it on the gaps in the legs, because we're going to go over them later anyway. Load up your brush like normal, remove the excess, and then we can Once you've done that, I'm going to take some graphite, or you could use Dawnstone if you have that, and I'm going to dry brush over them areas again. I haven't cleaned my brush in between this and the Eshin Grey. This will help to blend the two colours together. Now we've done that, I'm going to take some Administratum Grey. I'm going to do an even lighter dry brush of this. So I haven't cleaned the brush again, so it will help blend in again. Once you've done that, I'm going to take some Basilicon Grey and I'm going to thin this down with contrast medium quite a lot. This will help to tie it all back in together. Alright, so this mix is about an 8:1 ratio for 8 parts contrast medium to 1 part Basilicon Grey, and this is just going to go over the top of all that area that we've just done. This will hopefully darken them recesses and tie all this in together. So now we are going to take some Warp Fiend Grey. We're going to highlight the joints in the legs. Now we've done that, we're going to take some Drakenhof Nightshade and we're going to go over the feet, the mandibles, the sharp parts of the mandibles, and the sting at the end. I guess it's a stinger, I'm not really sure. So now we're going to take some grey cere and we're going to get the pustules, blobs, infected parts that are on Shelob's head and thorax. Now we've done that, we're going to take some Nazdrag Yellow. We're going to go over them pustules. Take some Black Legion and we are going to get them eyes that we've gone over with the pink. Once you've done that, I'm going to take some thinned down Fenrisian Grey and we are going to highlight the claws and the eyes. Once you've done that, I'm going to take some rust grey and we're going to go over the same highlights but very, very thinly with a smaller brush. Again, thin down rust grey. Don't need a lot of this. Now we're going to take some Agrax Earthshade and we're going to go over them pustules. Now that we've done that, I'm going to take some pink horror and we are going to highlight Shelob's face. Whilst we've got the pink horror out, we're going to stipple some pink onto the back of her body there. It's very similar to dry brushing. Load your brush up, work it into the bristles until you've not got much left, and then you want to do a stabbing motion. Load it up and then you can be a bit more precise with your dots. Once you're happy with the pink, we're going to take some Kislev flesh and we're going to highlight the face with this, and we're also going to get some of them stippling highlights that we've just done. This is going to be a spot highlight on the face. with the back of the carapace, we're going to just selectively dot in where we want them. Try and make it look as random as possible. Once you are happy with how that looks, we're ready to move on to the base. For the base, we're going to take some rattling grime, and I'm going to go over the whole of the base with this. If you're using a texture paint, then use whatever appropriate colour you think on that one. Sterling mud or something of that colour would work well. If not, this is just sand. I'm going to use rattling grime on it. Tidied up around the feet with some grey here to get that back to the undercoat colour. Now while you are near the feet, obviously be very careful not to get it on the feet themselves and undo that work that we've just done. Now that the rattling grime has dried, we're going to take some Steel Legion drab and we're going to dry brush over the entirety of the base. I'm doing this, just be careful not to get it on any feet or any legs. Once you've done that, take some Karak stone and do the same over this. Lighter dry brush this time. I'm just going to want to catch the edges. Again, I haven't washed my brush in between these two stages, help to blend these two colours in. Now, next we're going to take some Basilicanum Grey. With this, we're going to go over the areas that we caught on the legs and possibly the body with the dry brushing. These two legs here got quite a dry brush. So I'm just going to take some straight out of the pot, just put it over that area. So with that, Shelob is done, and I've also done the same with Gollum and Frodo with their bases. So next we're going to work on Frodo. Tidied him back up with grey cere, but we are going to take some Mortarian grime, and we're going to go over the top of all over Frodo. Whilst that Mortarian grime is still wet, we're going to take some Agrax Earthshade and we're going to go over the top of the Mortarian grime. Get these two to blend together. Now that is dried, we're going to take some Screaming Skull and we're going to lightly dry brush over the top of these webs. Using a small dry brush on this one. Once you've done that, I'm going to come back in with some Mortarian grime and we're just going to cover over again just to re-establish that shade of green. Now, to work on Gollum, to start off with, starting from the grey sear, done his base the same as Shelob's. We're going to take some iron rack skin, and we're going to go over all of his skin. Being careful not to get this on any of the rocks that we've already painted. Try not to get it on there either. We'll fix that later. Finish off Frodo, we're going to take some Gollum flesh and we're going to get his toes, just sticking out them webs there. So Gollum's skin we're going to go over with Reichland Flesh Shade. Again, being careful not to get this on the rocks. Now that it's dried, we're going to come back in with some iron rack skin, but we're going to lightly dry brush this onto his skin. Next, we're going to take some deep caned flesh and do the same again. A lighter dry brush again with this one, lighter than the previous layer. I've not washed my brush in between these two stages. Again, this will help to blend them in. Last final stage for his skin, we're going to take some flayed one flesh and we're going to do an even lighter dry brush with this. To re-establish the colour of the rock where it would inevitably gone over around his feet and around his hands, I'm going to take some Agrex Earthshade and I'm just going to wash over the top of it. Being careful not to get it on the skin this time. Come back in with some grace here. We're going to go over the loincloth. We're going to tidy up that, get it ready for the next colour, just to get it back to its base coat. So once we've tidied up his loincloth, we're going to take some Gore Grunt of Fur. I've slightly thinned this down, just 1-to-1 with water. I find it can be a bit too much straight out the pot. Next we're going to take some Carroburg Crimson and we're going to go over the scars on Gollum's back. Next we're going to take some Nuln Oil and we're going to go over Gollum's hair. What little of it he has. Also, whilst we have the Nuln Oil out, we're going to paint inside of Gollum's mouth and his eyes. So here are the 3 completed. This is the Path to Cirith Ungol box. Yeah, really enjoyed these ones. Nice and quick and easy to do. You can obviously spend a lot more time on them if you want to, but I am quite pleased with how these have come out, and I think they look pretty good for the amount of time that we spent on them. So yeah, hope you enjoyed this one. Yeah, see you in the next one. Thank you very much. Bye bye.